Hi, I'm Yulia, and this is Burning Questions. And the topic that set the internet on fire this week is what's happening with the new Russian offensive on Kharkiv and Sumy, and how is that going to influence Ukraine? And we have Glenn Grant here to help us answer that.
My name's Glenn Grant. I'm a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel from Great Britain, and I currently work for the Baltic Security Foundation as a defense expert and a long-time volunteer in Ukraine.
Awesome. Well, thank you for everything that you do in Ukraine, and thank you for coming to this channel again. Well, we, as per usual, are talking about the changes in the battlefield in Ukraine and in everything that's happening. So, what's your take on the most recent revelation that Russia has started its I wouldn't even say counteroffensive, an offensive on Sumy and Kharkiv?
Well, there's been a lot of pressure on both cities for the last year, I think. So I don't think there's any surprise in there being an offensive. What I haven't seen anything of any strength yet is what sort of offensive it is in terms of people and systems from the Russian side. In other words, it's been very quiet so far in the media. But I would hope that on the Ukraine side that there is an extremely strong defense from both places. I mean, we've had plenty of warning. So if there's not strong defense there, using all the available resources from the two cities, because there are a lot of people in both cities still, and units around there. If the defense is not properly sorted out, then I'm afraid people need to go to prison for it, because we've spent long enough now knowing what's going to come and therefore how we actually deal with it. Hopefully, they will get 5 yards, 10 yards inside Ukraine, and they will be defeated. So we need to see, because at the moment it's not clear what's happening.
Yeah, there has been very little information coming out from the media and from officials in general about it, except for the fact that they have announced that this offensive has started. Kharkiv, for instance, I don't know, it worries me because, well, firstly, there has been so much shelling and so many attacks on Kharkiv that and it's so close to Russia. Sumy as well. Of course, both of these cities are very close to the border, so I think they're likely targeting them because it's an easy one.
Yeah, it's easy.
Do you think they're actually trying to take these cities, or do you think they're trying to distract the Ukrainian military enough to take the rest of the 4 oblasts that they are already holding?
No, I'm absolutely sure that they want to take them, especially Kharkiv, because if they take Kharkiv, then it's a diplomatic and military coup of the highest order, because they haven't actually really managed to take a major city at all so far. I mean, since actually Donetsk. So a city of substantial size, with all that comes with that for the reward for Putin and the status elsewhere is amazing for them. So I would worry greatly about our defense of Kharkiv at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they've also said many times, right, on their propaganda channels that they really want to take Kharkiv, and that Kharkiv is a Russian city. And I'm pretty sure that it was on Russia's agenda from the very first day. It's just that they weren't able to take it because the Kharkiv defense at the time was pretty strong, and they weren't able to necessarily do that. You're right. I actually didn't even think about it, but all of the oblasts that they have taken so far that they didn't take in 2014, they did not take the major cities like Zaporizhia. The city is not theirs. Kherson, the city is not theirs. And then Donetsk and Luhansk, I mean, they've held since 2014. What do you think would be the best course of action for Ukraine in terms of what to do from now on?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously defend the two cities. They've got to hold as much as possible everywhere. I mean, that's the first thing. It's got to hold and not let Russia creep forward any more than they have to. I think they definitely got to get the core system that the army is going to put in place. They've got to get that in and working, and that may take another 6 months, and sort out the groupings, the authorities, the orders, and the resource allocation and resource management, because both of those are really, really important. And then they've got to let these commanders actually fight the battle. At the moment, commanders are not being allowed to fight the battle by Sersky. He's trying to make a decision on every tactical, every man position, every single man position, putting people in places where they can't fight, putting people in places where they're just going to die. And that has got to stop. It really has got to stop. And Zelensky's got to understand that the way we've been fighting the battle for the last couple of years is it's just depressing for every single soldier. And if you get depressed because you can feel that the command is not giving you the opportunity to be the person that you are and fight in the way that you know you can do, and you're being controlled, because this is the big problem, control. And if you're being controlled, then your morale drops, and it just keeps dropping. And you can tell, therefore, how much it's dropping by the number of people that are going absent, and are running away. Thankfully, a lot of them are coming back, but I think that they're coming back in the hope that the method of fighting and the human rights aspects of being a soldier are going to be properly addressed, and that they're going to be allowed to fight. Because when you let soldiers fight properly, you let them fight on their own, and you don't distract them, and you don't mess them about. You just give them a clear objective, whether that's hold, or whether try to take a bit back. It doesn't matter. Just try to take a bit back, and you let them get on with it themselves, so they can negotiate, where the forests are, where the woods are, where the best lines for moving are, where you've got to come back, not trying to drive your tanks into an open field because they're going to get zapped by drones. When you let the boys fight the battle themselves, you will see different results. You see better results. Even with limited resources and limited people, you will still see better results. So I think that the core system and allowing soldiers to actually to fight themselves properly, I think are the things that Ukraine must do. But I would add one thing to that, which is this understanding that no matter how many drones you've got, no matter how many tanks and everything else you kill, the Russian numbers have still got to be defeated on the line by ordinary soldiers. That ground can only be taken by soldiers, not by drones. So if we're going to advance and we're going to take back all the territories and Crimea, eventually it's going to be infantry that do that. And therefore, the quality of infantry, the way we train them, the way we look after them, has got to fundamentally change. They must not be meat. They must be the elite of the armed forces. And how you do that, how you find the elite commanders, the best commanders, and get them working, those are the fundamentals. And we haven't even started really in many areas of the army doing that.
Well, I do agree with you. We've talked about this many times on this channel, that there needs to be a restructuring of the Ukrainian military, and that the commanders really need to sort of give the power to middle managers, speaking kind of in like layman's speak, right, rather than just micromanaging everything. I do find, I don't know if you've seen this, but there was this video that came out recently, or sort of a report that came out recently. There was a unit of 7 people that was surrounded in Toretsk because the commander of the unit and a couple of people basically went on a recon mission, and then they got stuck in this building they were defending for 35 days. And they were taken out of the surround by the Ukrainian military. So that sort of gives me hope, because I feel like in the cases before that, they would have been left there, because there would have been like no.
I mean, there are serious changes taking place across the whole of the army, but they're not taking place fast enough, and they're not taking place in a systemic fashion. They're taking place where a good commander allows his boys to do the job properly. And that shouldn't be the way it is. It should be everywhere. It should be the same. And commanders should be absolutely clear that there will be no corruption in their units. There will be no dishonesty in their units. Obviously, no alcohol, no drugs, these things. And it's only when you get that sort of as an army-wide attitude that this is how it is, that we'll really start moving forward. And I think I'm quite convinced that if we can get something like this, that we can move forward really quite quickly. Because the Russian side, although it's got lots of good things about it, and although they're getting quite clever in many areas, a lot of the soldiers are still very, very third rate. And you could see that by the numbers that are being killed every day. If they were good, we couldn't kill 1,000 in a day or 1,200 in a day, which means that the quality balance is probably like 1 to 10 at the moment. But that means that the one has got to be allowed to do his job to the best of his abilities and encouraged to do his job to the best of his abilities.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is also now evidence, right, that there are Chinese soldiers fighting on behalf of Russia, and they're just basically importing soldiers from other countries like North Korea and China and whoever is willing to sacrifice, I guess, units of their army to fight for their cause, which are people that are not trained in the same conditions. There are people that don't even speak the language. So for them, it's like, reconnaissance and staying in touch with other units is impossible for them to like sort of tell their tell on the radio what they need is impossible because majority of the Russians don't speak English. They definitely don't speak Chinese or Korean. So there is just a lot of issues with that. Also, we see that with even in that latest sort of evacuation from the surrounding, one of the things that they were saying is that Russians just kept storming and they kept killing them. And they just kept storming and storming. So it doesn't matter for Russia, right? Like it's just bodies, it's disposable bodies.
Yeah.
Of course, all of this depends mostly on Ukraine and how the Ukrainian army behaves. But so now it's been a while since Trump came into power. Now it's been a while since Trump's changes came into power. Do you think that influenced or it will influence how Ukraine can conduct war?
Let me go back to your comment about foreigners in the Russian army. I think you need to understand the difference between those, or make a difference for viewers, between those who are here because their country is supporting Russia, which are basically the North Koreans, and those who are here because they are either bonehead stupid or adventurers, or they've been paid a lot of money because they can't get that money somewhere else. And at the moment, I think we have only seen North Koreans as a deliberate, plus a few from Iran. Well, we haven't seen Chinese in any numbers. I mean, if you actually think about it, considering they've got whatever they have, 1.3 billion, to only have 2 on the front line is indicative of absolutely nothing. When we see a platoon on the front line, then we can actually start saying, yeah, China's involved. But two is nothing, because it's just another 2 soldiers from another country. They could be African, they could be Greek, could be anywhere. Doesn't matter. So I don't think one should take too much, read anything into that at all at the moment. But going back to the North Koreans, I mean, they're extremely fit, capable people, although their soldiering is still not as good. But that will get better, and that's worrying because as they get better, some of them are going to take these skills and ideas back to North Korea. You can be absolutely sure North Korea is looking very carefully, and then that means that we then have a high grade or higher grade force on the other side of the demilitarized zone. And what will that mean for South Korea in future? And what will that mean for for future warfare in Asia? So I think that we are being very casual in accepting the North Koreans without actually doing something against North Korea. This is not just against Russia. It's now a proper allied group. And how much China's in there, really, we still don't know. But we do know Iran is in there 100%, and we do know North Korea's in there 100%. Right, going back to the America bit, I'm not sure that it should change anything that how the boys fight at all, except that if we then start getting short on ammunition, then that will make a difference to how they fight. But they've been there before. They said this will not be the first time. It won't be the second time, I'm sure. And because America under Trump cannot be relied upon at the moment. But what I think is really important is that the whole country of Ukraine must remember that America is not Trump and Trump is not America. In fact, Trump is the complete antithesis of America. He is the opposite of everything that the America that I know and love and that the world has known and loved for 80 years. He is the direct opposite of that. So I think he will come and he will go, and at some stage. And I think that the strength of America has always been its good people. And I'm sure that when they wake up properly to what is happening, that there will be a fight back either in the courts or even, at worst case, a civil war of some sort. But the good people will win in America because America is founded upon the idea of good people. It's not founded upon the idea of nastiness, and never has been. So we should just keep our views and ideas balanced about America and just understand it's the American government under Trump that is the nasty bit, and we have to deal with that. But we must not lose sight of all our friends, the other friends, the people who are giving us millions of their own money and supporting as volunteers and buying drones and bringing medical equipment from America in truckloads. We should not forget them and make them feel that we don't love them because they're not supporting us, because they still are in truckloads.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very interesting to watch what's happening in America. There have been large protests. There is another one scheduled for April 19th, I believe.
Oh.
I don't know if you've seen those. Those were quite impressive, but they didn't necessarily accomplish anything quite yet. And American people are sort of, I guess, waking up. That brings me back to when Biden, was giving his post to Trump. He reminded the American military to follow their oath and remember who they serve. And
Yep.
that's a very interesting situation. Actually, in a hypothetical, if Trump wanted to take over the US and put in martial law and deploy the military into the American cities, do you think the military would follow Trump, or do you think the military would act in the accordance of what's best for the American people?
No, I think they'd follow Trump. I don't have any doubts about it, because most military do as they're told by the commander in chief, and the number of military that have been removed, senior military that have been removed by Trump, is basically Trump is getting rid of those who had who reached that rank because of moral courage, because they are the best people of their generation, and he's now culled those in big numbers. So my suspicion is, sadly, that a lot of the military will just do as they're told. Yeah, there'll be people who don't, but then this is where, as I come back to, this is where the societal break may come, where you actually get, units who pull away from the armed forces and say, no, we're not going to do this. Now, that's happened historically in many countries. Then we see then one will find out the strength of character and the depth of character of most of the American people.
Well, many people speculate that there is a civil war coming in America based on everything that's happening. What do you think about that?
I think this is going to depend totally upon the courts. It's going to depend totally upon the courts. If the courts are listened to, and and by courts I also mean Senate and Congress, if they are actually listened to, and the legal framework and the constitutional framework remain largely in place, there will be no civil war. But if those are broken, if courts start getting trampled over, then I think you'll find that not just ordinary people, but you have to remember, United States is states. It's not the federal government. The federal government has relatively quite a limited role to play, because the majority of stuff comes under states. I mean, that is why you get these states doing mad things over abortion and ridiculous laws, because they are actually quite powerful in themselves. And I think before one sees a civil war, there will be a pre-level of states getting really, really aggressive about the relationship between the state and the federal government. And we've already seen two or three of the governors actually saying, we are not X, Y, and Z. That we are democratic in this state, and we will stay so. New York being one of them, and Trump does not have the power to shift these people. He will try. He may try by sending in the army, but that is when you would then see something very challenging with the big army, which I think would remain loyal to Trump, and because he's the commander in chief, and the National Guard, who are of course under the governor of each state. So it's the governor, although they're part of the Ministry of Defense. If it came to governor and state versus federal forces, I think most of them will go for state. I can't be 100% sure, but I think that's my guess. And that the further away from federal government they are, i.e., California, the more that they will stick to their homeland, which is California or Texas, than they would federal.
The interesting thing about California, I don't know if you've seen, well, first of all, there is this, it's not a joke anymore, but there is this joke about Cascadia, which would be the Pacific Northwest plus California, its own country. Yeah. But Gavin Newsom recently said that he's not going to be imposing any of the tariffs on that Trump has imposed on other countries, and that he's going to be trying to figure out how to trade with the world as California, not as the United States. And that's a huge step in that direction, and I think New York is going to do the same things. Yeah. A friend of mine actually sent me, I can show it to you because it's on my other phone that I don't have here, but my best friend who lives in New York sent me a picture of my local Whole Foods where I used to go every day to get groceries, and the fridge with meat and the fridge with eggs is totally empty. Like, it looks apocalyptic. Like, Ukraine looked better in the first days of the full-scale invasion than the fridge in a New York Whole Foods, which I think is going to steer people certain places.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, the economy, stupid, food, and the budget, the House budget, are probably the most powerful tools. And if Trump keeps destroying those, then it at some stage it will inevitably come back and bite him in some way or another.
Well, what do we, speaking of tariffs and speaking of international relations and everything, what do we think about the U.S. Basically exiting Europe?
Well, I mean, it's totally foolish, whatever anyone says, because, I mean, if Trump wants to go and fight China, he's got to take Europe with him. And if only because a lot of little things that he doesn't know about, because he's ignorant in terms of what a military consists of, a lot of little things that he might like are actually in the European domain. I mean, shifting large numbers of forces. If you don't have the Dutch shipping, the roll-on, roll-off ferries, you're in trouble, because you can't put many tanks on a in aircraft and fly them. And if you haven't got the roll-on, roll-off, you've got to get them. And if they say, well, we want to do this, and then the ferry company says, no chance, nobody will insure you. Small things, insurance, reinsurance of shipping. These are things which, I mean, most insurance and reinsurance, correct me if I'm wrong, someone, but I think it comes out of Europe. So these are small things that they add to the game. And having just seen that now we've negotiated to go back into Afghanistan, hey, Trump was the one who said we're going to leave. Now we've suddenly realized that we can't afford to leave and we need the airbase if we're going to go all the way across to the other side. Well, nobody seems to have called him to account largely for this. So there you are, blah, blah, blah about what we're going to do. And then second term, and we're back in there. At what cost, I would ask. And that's his problem. But it does just show this total lack of awareness of the rest of the world, Europe being just a part of that. One thing which Trump has done, and you've got to give him credit for it, he's forced the European Union and the European countries to face up to their failings. Almost. I don't think we've got there yet. I still think there's a lot more dithering to go yet from European leaders before we actually reach a point where they actually understand what they're doing and what they need to do. But it's not just Europe, is it? I mean, he's kicking all his allies. And can you afford to kick Australia, New Zealand, South Korea? And the game that he's playing of being friendly to Russia, to Belarus, to North Korea by not tariffing them is bizarre.
It is bizarre, especially when you see him tariffing, islands full of penguins and uninhabited places.
That's brilliant. But there again, being blunt about this, is that stupidity or is that, as I call it, distraction? Because one of the things of the FSB playbook is one of the key things is distraction, and they're very good at it. I mean, they're very good at it in the parliament here in Ukraine, where you put two laws up at the same time. One is extremely nasty and stupid, and the other one is just bad and probably corrupt. And so the first one gets a big fight and gets all the publicity and gets overturned, and the second one gets through. But the second one is actually the one that's going to do the damage on something. And this, I mean, you can see this quite regularly, and the distraction is something that Trump is good at, or Trump's team is good at, but it's very straightforward Russian FSB action. Two actions, three actions. One of those is so stupid and loud that people talk about it and they miss the actual direction of attack, which is somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean that's actually an interesting thing to point out. I don't think that particularly, taxing the penguins was a smart move on their behalf. They do those strategies a lot. It does appear like they use ChatGPT to generate both the formula and the places that they need to put tariffs on, which is just absolutely wild, provided that ChatGPT has a 60% error rate. Well, no, yeah, over 60% error rate for its answers. So I think that the penguins, unfortunately, were taxed because of ChatGPT and its mistakes, not necessarily because of Trump's brilliant actions, but it did play well for them. So they probably used it going viral for enacting something else.
And it did give a lot of us at least some humorous relief from the stupidities. And probably will for many more years to come, because I think his presidency is going to be marked by penguin jokes forever.
Yeah, so many jokes forever. I've seen so many ridiculous things. Like there are people on Trump's side now. I don't know if you've seen this. For him, everlasting minds, because their retirement funds they're going bankrupt basically because of the tariffs. And then there are people that are not quite yet ready to admit that Trump's presidency is doing terrible things to them, but they're like going on the internet asking the other side to explain why tariffs are bad. And I haven't seen anything as funny, because it's kind of like Trump supporters understanding they screwed up, but like not being able to say it. So they're like, they're kind of like coming to it from the side.
Yeah. Dodging and weaving, as we say in the British Army, dodging and weaving.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, when there is a drone, when there is a drone
That's
hunting
right.
you
Yeah.
and you're in a
Yeah.
vehicle, you have to zigzag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I guess like the last question is sort of like, what are your overall feelings on what's going to be happening moving forward in the world, like in the coming like 2 3 months before I see you again in this channel.
Well, I mean, I think the one thing I'm going to say is I'm not going to make any predictions about America and the actions of Trump, because it is just totally unpredictable. I'm not strong enough into the subtleties of things going around, the White House and Congress and everywhere else. You'd need 20 days a week, 50 days a week to read into it all, to understand what is going on. The best I can do is just say, I think it's going to continue until he's stopped in that regard. For Ukraine, I mean, I think that where Ukraine is at the moment is as good
Hmm.
as it's going to be.
Hmm.
I don't think we can ask for any more from anybody for the time being. I think there is now a strong realization that America has undermined the Western order, including Ukraine. I don't think that is, as many people think, that this is just against Ukraine. It's not. It's against everybody. Ukraine just happens to be, the country that feels it the most, I think, because it's the most sharp in Ukraine about what he's doing, being cut loose almost. But the good side for that is that maybe it will actually finally make the government understand that it cannot continue running a government and running a war with just friends. That, I mean, choosing your friends from a film company because they're your friend is not a good way of running a business. Not this one, not a war. So, the country still needs to actually, Zelensky needs, not the country. Zelensky needs to understand he's got to get better people into his team, and he's got to start listening to them. He can't make the decisions for the whole country from the president's administration. They've got to change the method of government, written objectives, clear written orders for ministries to be able to grapple with the problem. And when they give them, then they get good results. When you've got people with capability, then Kalmikova in the Ministry for Veterans, and biting quite difficult subjects and taking them forward. But there still needs a lot more of that if Ukraine is going to start going forward. And the diplomacy, I'm sorry, but the diplomatic effort, and again, I've talked about this many times, they need to rethink completely who are the diplomats in which country, what are they there to do, and why do we need to change half the ones that are there and put people in who actually have got capability to make the country that they're in fight for Ukraine. And that means quality. It means quality people. And using people who've just failed in the Ministry of Defence, I'm sorry, but failed in the Ministry of Defence as a diplomat somewhere is not a good plan. Because they've shown they're not good enough. If you're not good enough for a ministry, you're not good enough for something here. You're not good enough to be a diplomat for Ukraine either. And we need those other countries, every single one of them. We need them on our side, which means that you've got to have really, really, really good speakers, good people, clever people, actually doing the arguments for Ukraine in those countries. And many are not doing that. Some are, many are not.
Agreed. I mean, yeah, for sure. It's there needs to be like a full force transformation on every single level of the
Yeah,
government. I agree with you, and I think they're happening, but they're happening quite slowly.
yeah,
It's trial and error while they need to be
yeah,
correct
it shouldn't
in
be.
what they're doing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving me your time today. I'm obviously going to see you again sometime soon in a month or
Yeah,
two.
let's hope. Let's hope.
to catch up on the apocalypse that's happening by then, but
Yeah, apocalypse now, or is it apocalypse next week? I don't know. But anyway,
yeah.
every day's interesting. That's absolutely true. And I
Yeah.
just remind everybody that's watching, for Ukraine, we are going to win. There is no messing. We are going to win. It's just taking a bit longer for viewers than most people would like, but we are going to win.
Yeah. Well, you kind of always give. I think someone even wrote a comment about that, where you sort of give like the no BS truth, but at the same time, some kind of like therapy that that gives people hope, which I find very funny because it is very true.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Always happy to have you here.
Okay. Thank you very much. Speak to you again soon. Bye
Yeah.
then.
Well, I hope this conversation was as interesting to you as it was to me. I always enjoy having Glenn around because, he has the sort of non bullshit approach, but also with a dash of a little bit of optimism and hope. And if you enjoyed it and you would like to hear more conversations like it, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Also, turn on all of your notifications so you don't miss when the next episode comes out. And of course, like this video, share it with a friend, share it with your family members, share it with someone who desperately needs to hear it. And leave your questions, suggestions, thoughts, constructive criticism, anything in your mind in the comments down below because I read all of them and I appreciate your feedback. See you next time.